You're watching coverage of the UEFA Champions League round of 16 matches, and we're looking ahead to analysing what took place in the first half between FC Copenhagen and Manchester City. City leading by the odd goal in 3, but we'll take a quick break and we'll be back with a lot more after this. Welcome back to our coverage on the Home of Champions as we take a look at the first half highlights between FC Copenhagen and Man City. And gentlemen, as we get straight into it, I figured that Copenhagen would have had a warm time against City, and that's exactly what took place. And you're describing the type of goals or chances that they were creating and then eventually the goals.
Yeah, I mean, City is great when you look at the front line. It's not a front three, but it really turns to a front five with De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva adding in that front five. And it's just causing a lot of danger. Here we see it. The ball goes out wide, and De Bruyne is here in that half space. And it's just difficult for the two centre-backs to defend because they have Haaland to deal with. But after about 15 minutes or so, we saw that Copenhagen was able to apply some high pressure. And once they went there, they did pretty good. But of course, this was a sloppy mistake from Ederson, and I'm sure he will hear about that at halftime. Yeah,
Magnus Madsen there was able to convert, and they were really ecstatic with the equaliser in the 34th minute there.
Yeah, it was a brilliant finish. It was nonchalance by Ederson, as he tends to do, but when he gets it wrong, it's always going to look awful, and that's exactly what happened. There was a poor pass out. I'm not quite sure who he was trying to pick out there, maybe Ake, but this is a brilliant finish.
An amazing stat that we heard was that, what, this is the 13th time that they would have considered of your first shot this season?
Yeah, that's just what happens when you're that dominant. That's what happens as a result of that. So usually, coincidentally, whenever City do give up a chance, it's usually a good one.
I mean, it is also more difficult for the keeper. You will look at the second
Deja vu
goal,
almost.
And we see it again. Bernardo Silva kind of in that half space, in between Haaland and the winger, who in this case was De Bruyne. And it's just a very dangerous space to come from. But to go back to the City mistake, when you have a keeper who barely has anything to do, get no touches on the ball, it becomes more difficult to have that accuracy in the passing. But nevertheless, great from Copenhagen to get themselves in that game, as we see that one here especially.
It was a brilliant finish from Bernardo as well. Not to get lost on that, but even as you mentioned in the half spaces and how pivotal they are to City, I think that's what makes them so hard to defend. Because when you think about it, when I said that earlier that they're made to break down low blocks, that's how you do it, by adding extra numbers. Yes, they'll be sacrificing a bit on the defensive transition, but City are the best team in the world at keeping the football. So at that point, they're sacrificing it for the greater good for their attack. And when they have 5-6 players along the attack line, what defense is going to be able to cope with that unless they are going to have 6-7 players back? And at that point, they can't hurt you offensively. So it's just another way in which Pep Guardiola just continues to innovate.
There are going to be more goals in this, right? Because you said 2-1, that's not going to remain the same.
Yeah, no, Copenhagen will not accept a loss. So they will, as the game goes on and stays at this, they will go more and more attack. And I mean, City is great at breaking down defenses, but if you give them space, they even have more fun. So I expect some goals in the second half. Yeah.
All right, we've got to go. We've got to get out of here. So much to look ahead to. As far as the second half is concerned, we go back to our feed.